As we wrap up the holiday shopping season, here to discuss the trends that we're seeing across retail, whether in brick and mortar or e-commerce, is Nick Shields, Senior Analyst at the Third Bridge Group. Nick, thanks so much for joining us. I'd like to go ahead and dive right in here. We know, of course, given the backdrop of the global pandemic, social distancing, folks staying at home, that brick and mortar is going to be off this season, but let's dive in there and explore that. And who's going to be hurting the most?
Unsurprisingly, unfortunately, it's the department stores. I mean, you probably know as well as I do, they've been suffering for years. Department store foot traffic could be down as much as 40 to 50% year on year. And that's not even coming from that good of a base, if you will. You know, last year we saw foot traffic down significantly from the prior year as well in the during the holiday season. You know, categories such as apparel are a little bit better. You know, from the conversations we're having with experts, we hear, 30, 40% down year on year. So that would be, names like Foot Locker, Gap, Old Navy, companies like that. And beauty is performing a little bit better, down around 20%. The interesting thing is that you'll see, one significant foot traffic differences between, mall versus off-mall properties. So, mall properties, even if they are in Class A malls, are still struggling significantly with foot traffic during the pandemic. And, amid a lot of closures on these C and D malls, even A malls are not spared from the suffering and the pain, if you will.
Nick, let's talk about the suffering and the pain, because going into the pandemic, correct the metric, but I think we'd have analysts come on who would say that regarding brick and mortar, there was 2-to-1 overcapacity, that there was a necessity to cut the amount of retail space. Is that still the case? Because the pandemic, I would imagine, has accelerated, and it might be even greater now than 2-to-1.
Yeah, I don't know if it's greater than 2-to-1, but there's certainly still a massive overcapacity at the store level that you're seeing. From the conversations we're having with experts, we think through the end of next year, if not longer, we'll see, a significant amount of retail closures. This will hang over the sector until well after the pandemic, maybe even into the later parts of 2022, if you will. Really what you're going to see is a lot of these C and D mall properties and even some strip centers, close down, and, the retailers that are in those stores will have to relocate. The other interesting trend we've seen over the last couple of years is the conversion of mall-based properties into mixed-use developments. Some apartment buildings, some outdoor strip centers, things like that. So I think you'll see that, into 2022 and, quite frankly, even longer.
Nick, one trend that I've experienced, obviously we've seen e-commerce just on a tear, the keyword coming up, omni-channel. Yep. I've now experienced curbside during some of my visits to the suburbs, and I really like it. So what kind of opportunity does that pose for retailers, and a challenge for those that haven't quite gotten a hold of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, retailers want more and more sales to be done on the curbside pickup front, because, your margins are better than, your pure online shipping or your pure online order. You're sort of seeing a bifurcation in retail. I mean, companies like Target have, really invested for years in buy online, pick up in store, and omni-channel infrastructure. Whereas some other retailers, notably the department store sector, but some other sectors as well, just have not invested there because they haven't had the cash. And, for the retailers like Target, but, some other ones as well, you could see as much as 50% of their online orders this holiday season be picked up in stores. And, to your point, people like it. It's pretty convenient. The retailers that are good at it have mastered it, where you pull up outside the location, you press you open the app and say you're there, and then they go and they put it in your trunk and you go on your way. It's a pretty simple, easy process that, a lot of consumers are sort of waking up to for the first time during the pandemic. But, we could see double-digit growth in buy online, pick up in store sector-wide over the next couple of years coming out of this as well.